Welcome back to MHS, Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you use these videos to help you fall asleep. So before we get started, I just want to ask you for a small but meaningful favor to help the show continue and grow. Please leave a little interaction for the video, a like, comment, share, or simply turn on the video and leave it there and relax. Such actions will help YouTube appreciate the content and spread the show to more people. Thank you for spending your time here and for your love for the show and our team. Your support is really a great motivation for us to continue creating more attractive content. Now let's begin tonight's horror stories. I quit my security guard job 3 years ago, but the memory of that night still haunts me. Every time I see a no signal on a screen, my heart starts pounding. In 2019, I was working the night shift as a security guard at Walmart. After 2 years on the job, I knew every nook and cranny of that place. That night, I was sitting in the security room, drinking coffee and watching NBA on my phone. The clock had just struck 2 a.m. when a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the building. It sounded like someone had knocked over a whole shelf. I immediately switched to the CCTV screens. Images from many CCTV displayed on 6 screens, covering everything from the main entrance to the hallways, from the central lobby to each individual department. I checked each angle, zooming in on areas where something might have happened. Nothing. Everything was silent. I grabbed my flashlight and keys and started patrolling from the ground floor. I meticulously checked each department. After about an hour of patrolling, finding nothing unusual, I returned to the security room. Maybe it was just a stray cat knocking over a trash can outside. I sat down, intending to go back to my phone, when I suddenly noticed something strange on CCTV number 8, which covered the best electronics department on the second floor. A faint, bluish light, like the glow from a TV screen. I zoomed in on that CCTV. Yes, there was definitely something glowing inside the store, but how could that be? I had just checked that store, and everything was off. I quickly grabbed my flashlight and keys to head back to the second floor. The second floor hallway was darker than the ground floor, with only a few emergency lights illuminating it. As I approached Best Electronics, I clearly saw the blue light from inside. I unlocked the door and stepped in. The scene inside stunned me. In the middle of the store, in front of a flat-screen TV, stood 2 people, an elderly man and an elderly woman. They stood close together, staring intently at the screen. "Excuse me, what are you 2 doing here?" I said loudly. The woman turned to look at me. Her face was wrinkled, and she offered a gentle smile with calm eyes. "This is the only program that makes him happy." I looked over at the man. He was still staring straight at the screen, unmoving. My hand unconsciously tightened its grip on the flashlight. "How did you get in here?" "We closed at 11 p.m. "We just need to watch a little longer. He really likes this show," the woman said. A chill ran down my spine from the way she spoke. The man hadn't moved or said a word since I entered. I started to wonder if he was even alive. That thought made me want to run immediately. "I have to report this. You 2 need to come out with me." My voice was stiff, trying to hide the rising panic. "Just 5 more minutes. Please. I'll call the police if you don't cooperate." I pulled out my walkie-talkie, my hand trembling as I pressed the button to call the night supervisor. While calling, I didn't dare take my eyes off the 2 people. "Jake, I've got 2 intruders in Best Electronics on the second floor. Need backup and call the police." "Roger, keep them there. I'm calling the police now." When I hung up and turned back, the 2 people were gone. I stood frozen. I had only looked down at the walkie-talkie for a second to hang up. How could they disappear so quickly? I shined my flashlight around the entire store, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My breathing became rapid, as if there wasn't enough oxygen in my lungs. I shined my flashlight all over the store. No one. I checked the storage room in the back, the employee restroom, all empty. The TV was still on, displaying a blue screen. The police arrived. They searched the entire building, but found no one. There were no signs of forced entry at any of the entrances. All the doors were still locked, and the alarm system was functioning normally. "Are you sure you saw them?" the police officer asked me with skepticism. I understood immediately. He thought I was hallucinating. Absolutely sure. They were standing right in front of that TV. They asked to review the CCTV footage. We sat in the security room, replaying the recording from 3 a.m. On the screen, I saw myself opening the door to Best Electronics and stepping inside. I stood in the store, shining my flashlight everywhere. And I was talking to thin air. I froze, feeling like I was going crazy. In the CCTV footage, the store was completely empty. It was just me standing alone, talking to the darkness. But I swear with a God that I saw those two people. I still vividly remember that woman's voice and her eyes. The police examined the CCTV footage until morning. On the screen, the TV was indeed on, emitting a blue light. But no one else was visible besides me. I worked for 3 more months, then quit. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't focus anymore. Every night on patrol, I would stop by Best Electronics. The TV was always off, the store always empty. But sometimes I still felt like someone was watching me from inside. 6 months later, I read that Best Electronics had closed down. The reason, low revenue and unexplained technical incidents. They said the electronic devices in the department would often turn on by themselves at night, especially the large flat-screen TV. That department is now a bakery, but I never dare go in. Some nights when I drive by, I still see the dim light from inside. It's as if the old couple is still standing there, watching their favorite show on a non-existent screen. Some nights I wake up feeling like someone is standing outside my bedroom window, even though I live on the 12th floor, and I don't think it's an illusion because Richard has never been found. I'm Sarah, 28 years old. 2 months ago, I moved from California to Denver to work in the cardiology department of a local hospital. In cardiology, family members are allowed to stay overnight to care for patients, so the atmosphere at night feels less lonely than other departments. The first week went smoothly. I gradually got used to the job, learned how to use the equipment, and memorized the names of my colleagues and patients. Everything was normal until I met Richard. He was the husband of Mrs. Helen, 65, who had just been admitted for a heart attack. Mrs. Helen was in room 314, a double room, but the bed next to her was empty. Richard was much younger than his wife, only about 45, tall, with slightly graying hair at his temples. The first time we met, he greeted me very politely, his voice gentle. "Thank you for taking care of Helen." In the first few days, I was truly touched to see Richard always sitting by his wife's bed. He held Mrs. Helen's hand, spoke softly, and read the newspaper to her. Not everyone is lucky enough to receive such care during illness. After about a week, I started to notice something strange. Every time I entered the room to check on Mrs. Helen's condition, Richard would turn and look at me. At first, I thought it was just a natural reaction from a family member seeing a nurse, but his gaze lingered longer than necessary. His smile started to make me feel uneasy. I tried to ignore that feeling. Maybe I was overtired and overly sensitive, but everything changed completely. That night, it was around 1 a.m. I was leaning over to check Mrs. Helen's heart monitor, focusing on jotting down the readings. Suddenly, I felt someone's breath close to my ear. "You smell so good." I jumped, turning around, the blood pressure monitor in my hand almost dropping to the floor. Richard was standing right behind me, just inches away. Richard took a step back, still smiling. "I was just complimenting your perfume." "But I don't wear perfume when I work. Hospital policy doesn't allow it." I nodded awkwardly, quickly finished my check and left the room. All the way back to my desk, I felt like 1,000 ants were crawling on my back. Richard's friendliness seemed excessive. The next morning, I found a slip of paper on my desk. It was placed right on top of the patient files I was processing. The handwriting was neat. "To my favorite nurse." Below it was a drawing of a flower, each petal detailed, carefully shaded. The artist must have spent a lot of time on this small drawing. I asked my colleagues, but no one knew who left the note. The night security guard also said he didn't see anyone unusual in the work area. For a second, I thought of Richard, but then I put the note in a drawer and decided not to investigate any further. From then on, the feeling of being watched began to haunt me. Once I went to the restroom at the end of the hallway and heard footsteps following me. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty, but I swear I heard a faint sigh from the dark corner near the stairs. Every time I passed room 314, I felt like eyes were watching me from inside. Many times I looked back and saw Richard's head peeking out from the doorway, but when our eyes met, he would just smile and turn away. I decided to avoid room 314. I asked Jessica to check on Mrs. Helen for me, giving the excuse that I was handling another emergency. When Jessica returned, she said, "Mr. Richard asked about you. He said you're the best nurse he's ever met." I froze, unable to respond. My next shift, around 2 a.m., the nurse call bell from room 314 started ringing. It wasn't a normal ring. It was continuous, non-stop. Jessica was busy with another patient, so I was forced to go check. When I entered the room, I saw Mrs. Helen sleeping soundly, her breathing steady. Richard sat in the chair next to her, his arm resting on the bed rail. He looked at me with a worried expression. "Could you check Helen again?" I feel like something's not right. I approached the bed, checking thoroughly. The vital signs monitor was completely normal. Everything about her is normal. Are you mistaken? But instead of answering my question, Richard asked, "Are you afraid of working the night shift?" I looked at him with skeptical and uneasy eyes. Was he intentionally pressing the bell to get me to come here? Many things can happen at night. A young girl like you, alone in an empty hospital, he said, his voice slow. Richard's face looked strange. His smile seemed to hide a hungry look. "I have to go check on another patient." I tried to act normal and quickly left. I would definitely talk to someone about getting a different nurse to care for Mrs. Helen, preferably a male nurse. The next day, I had a scheduled day off. When I returned to work, Jessica told me about a man who had come looking for me on my day off. He said he was a family member of a patient who had been discharged and wanted to thank you. When I told him you weren't here, he looked very disappointed. Jessica described the man as middle-aged, tall, with slightly graying hair. Hearing the description, I immediately guessed it was Richard. Richard disappeared that day, and the hospital could not contact him for the next few days. Helen had no relatives to take care of her. I went to the records room to check Helen Miller's information and find contact information for her other relatives. But what made me shiver was that, in the contact information section, Richard's name was not listed. The emergency contact was Helen's daughter, Jennifer, who lived in Portland. I took the phone number from the file and called Jennifer. "Richard? I don't know anyone by that name," Jennifer said. "My mom has been a widow for 15 years. She lives alone." Her voice was both confused and angry. I hung up, my hands trembling. Richard had lied to me. He had impersonated Mrs. Helen's husband for a whole week, so what was his real purpose? I called the police immediately. 2 days later, they called back. The result struck me like lightning. His name is Richard Hayes, 47 years old, and he works for the hospital's cleaning company. This job allowed him free access to medical areas and to collect personal information about staff without anyone suspecting. My legs felt like jelly. "We're actively searching for him," the police officer continued. "Would you be able to identify him if we apprehend him?" I agreed. Richard could be anywhere, still watching me from places I couldn't imagine. Jennifer immediately transferred Mrs. Helen to another hospital. The hospital apologized and reimbursed all medical expenses. Jennifer was also understanding and didn't make a big deal out of it. 2 months have passed, but Richard still hasn't been found. I've changed jobs, moved, and even changed my name. I don't know how much longer this haunting will last. I work part-time at Peterson's grocery store. This whole ordeal started during my night shift 3 weeks ago. Usually after closing, I'd stay about 20 minutes to clean up. That night, I flipped the closed sign and started tidying the dry goods aisle, which customers had messed up. The hum of machinery was steady, blending with the occasional car passing by on the street. I liked this quiet. No grumpy Mr. Peterson, no customers asking questions. I was wiping down the meat counter in the back when I heard a noise. I froze, cloth still in hand. Listening for a few more seconds, I pinpointed it as a metallic sound, like someone prying at a door. I switched off the back lights and tiptoed out. Through the main door's glass, I saw 2 figures. One was tall, the other shorter. Robbers, I thought. My first instinct was to call the police, but then I realized I'd left my phone in the cash register drawer. To get my phone, I'd have to pass the main door, right where they were. I took a risk, crawling along the floor towards the cash register. Suddenly, I heard a click. They'd opened the lock. I quickly ducked behind the counter. My heart pounded in my chest, and I bit my lip to keep from breathing too loudly. From my hiding spot, I saw 2 pairs of feet step inside. 1 pair of worn black leather shoes, 1 pair of white athletic shoes. They closed the door carefully. I peered through the reflective glass of the refrigerator. They both carried backpacks, and their hands held long objects. As they drew closer, the neon light from outside illuminated them, and I clearly saw the taller one holding a gun. I pressed myself into the darkest corner behind the counter, making myself as small as possible. They didn't pay attention to the shelves, but went straight to the cash register. Their footsteps stopped right beside me. I held my breath, knees pressed to my chest, arms wrapped tightly around myself, feeling my heartbeat stronger than ever. If he just bent down, I knew I would die. A few seconds later, their footsteps echoed again, moving further from where I was hiding. It seemed they'd found the owner's safe. For the next 10 minutes, there were sounds of drilling, sawing, and muffled whispers. My legs were going numb from crouching. My neck ached from craning my head to listen. But I didn't dare move. From how they talked to each other, I thought they seemed very professional. They knew exactly what they were doing, with calmness and a plan. I thought about how to escape. The back door could be opened from the inside, but I'd have to pass where they were. My phone was right on the counter, but I'd have to stand up straight to grab it. The metallic sounds finally stopped. The safe had been opened. It was almost over. They'd take the money and leave. I would survive. But unexpectedly, the phone on the counter rang. My body froze, my eyes wide with shock. The 2 robbers went silent instantly. Their footsteps moved quickly closer to me. I guessed it was the owner calling. He occasionally called to check in or ask if I'd gotten home, but not now. His concern could kill me. The phone stopped ringing. I heard paper rustling and a small curse. They were searching for the phone. A few seconds later, the phone rang again. I figured it was the owner calling back. I thought to myself, this is it. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed my hair and pulled me up. "You bitch!" the tall one snarled. I cried out in fear and begged for my life. The other one quickly ran over. "There are lights at the end of the street. They're here." "Damn it! Find a way out!" As the 2 robbers panicked, a police loudspeaker blared, ordering them to surrender. The 2 robbers yelled at each other. I saw flashlight beams through the main door's glass. The police were approaching the entrance. Suddenly, the tall one turned back to me. "Get up!" he yelled loudly. He pressed the gun barrel against my temple. The other one stood beside him, gun pointed towards the door. My whole body went limp. I couldn't feel my legs anymore. "I've got a hostage here. If you move in, she dies." The sounds outside stopped. I heard the police whispering. "Let her go, and we'll negotiate." The police loudspeaker boomed, calm and steady. "I want a car and no police at the back exit of the store." The shorter one beside him seemed worried. Marcus, I don't think this is a good idea. We should... Shut up! I know what I'm doing. So his name was Marcus, I thought to myself. The tense standoff continued. The police tried to persuade him, but Marcus became increasingly unstable. Fear had completely paralyzed my ability to react. The shorter one suddenly lunged towards the door. As soon as the door opened, he was shot, falling instantly. Marcus watched, his eyes red with rage. In the very next second, another gunshot rang out loudly. The gun flew from Marcus's hand, and the police immediately stormed in. Marcus was completely surprised and caught off guard. He was quickly subdued and handcuffed. I collapsed to the floor, unable to move or answer any of the police's questions. I was taken to the hospital for a health checkup and psychological support. It took many days for my mind to return to normal. Through the news, I learned their names were Marcus Webb, 45, and Danny Chen, 19. Marcus had a criminal record for theft and is now detained, facing several serious charges. Danny was a college dropout and a first-time offender. He didn't make it. I think in that last moment Danny wanted to run out to surrender. I still vividly remember the guilt and worry in his eyes. I later learned more details about how the police arrived so quickly. It turned out that after Mr. Peterson called me, he checked the surveillance cameras. He immediately called the police and provided detailed information about the situation. He saved my life. I thanked Mr. Peterson and resigned from the grocery store. I found an administrative job where there were more people around. I can't stop thinking about the moment I became a hostage, about the complete paralysis I felt when facing death. Nightmares still often appear, but I'm slowly learning to overcome that fear. I'm Jackson, 14, living in a small town in the Midwest. My house is smack in the middle of a sparse forest, where oak and maple trees stretch as far as you can see. A week ago, my parents had to go on a business trip and left me home alone to take care of the place. My mom asked our neighbor Kate to check on me the first day, and my Aunt Tabby was supposed to stay over the next day. Like most teenagers, I was pumped to have the place to myself for a whole day, free to do whatever I wanted. But then, the quiet of the house, the eerie stillness of the forest, started creeping in, wrapping around me like a thick, dark curtain. That first night, I lay in bed, the soft yellow glow of my nightlight making the room feel less empty. But the peace didn't last long. There was a knock at the window. At first, I figured it was just the wind, but the tapping kept going, steady and relentless. When I pulled back the curtains, all I saw was darkness, but on the glass, a message appeared in the steam. I am looking at you. As I tried to make sense of what was happening, a piece of paper got shoved under the door. On it, in messy, slanted writing, "Do you want to know the secret of this house? Play my game." I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and tried to call my mom, but all I got was no signal. Right then, the lights started flickering like crazy. Then, boom, total blackout. Panic hit me hard. I ran to the front door, yanked at the handle, but it wouldn't move. The latch was locked. From the outside, a voice drifted in from the window.
"I used to live here before you came. This house has secrets your family never knew. I can help you find them, but you have to do what I say."
I was trapped, my own house, and I couldn't get out. In that moment, all the fear of a 14-year-old kid swallowed me whole. I couldn't say no. He slid another piece of paper toward me. "Go to the storage room under the stairs." The basement was a place I almost never went. It was dark, damp, and reeked of mold. With a shaky flashlight in my hand, I felt my way through the old wooden door. In the dim light, I spotted a big metal box buried under a pile of dusty old bottles. I pried it open and nearly dropped it in horror. Inside were rotting animal remains, cat bones, dog bones, even tufts of rabbit fur. The box reeked of death. My hands were shaking so bad, I let it go.
"This is just the beginning.
From the window came a low, chilling voice. "Go to the living room and look under the wood floor." I yanked up the old carpet in the living room and found a cracked floorboard. I pried it open. Sitting underneath was a glass jar filled with dried blood and tiny bone fragments. I couldn't tell what kind of animal the bones belonged to, but something in my gut told me they'd been there a long, long time. I picked up the jar, and as my flashlight hit it, my breath caught in my throat. Inside were several shriveled, dried-up human fingers. The fingernails were still there, but the skin had shriveled up into wrinkled, leathery patches. My whole body shook as I stumbled back. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer. Instead, his voice drifted through the window, low and icy.
You want the truth? There's one more place. Check the kitchen cabinet under the sink.
I don't know why, but I listened. Fear had shut off every logical thought in my brain. I was just moving, like a puppet on strings. The second I pulled the cabinet door open, a disgusting, stomach-churning stench hit me like a punch to the gut. Among the rotting trash and crumpled plastic sat a black garbage bag, knotted tight. As I peeled it open, the first thing I saw was hair, dark, matted. Then, smaller pieces of bone, and buried deep inside, something that made my breath stop cold. A severed human hand, the skin pale, stiff, frozen in time. I let out a scream and fell backward, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. That hand, it clung to my mind, wrapping around me, pulling me down into a nightmare I couldn't escape. Then he stepped into view, standing outside the window. This time, he wasn't wearing a mask. His face was hollow, his eyes bulging with red veins, like he hadn't slept in years.
Did you see that?
He whispered.
This used to be my house. I lived here when it was abandoned, but then your family came, and he chased me away.
He pointed at the plastic bag.
That's what I left behind, proof that I was here. The animals I found, the people who tried to make me leave. You have no right to be in this house. It's mine.
Then, out of nowhere, he lunged inside, gripping a massive hammer. I didn't think. I just swung the baseball bat to him. With all my strength, it connected with a sickening crack. Panic had taken over, wiping out every other thought. Eyes shut tight, I just kept swinging, again and again. He finally hit the ground. Still. By the time the police got there, they found everything I told them about. Animal bones, human fingers, and the twisted tools he used to hunt and store his works. The human arm in the kitchen drawer was confirmed by DNA to belong to a guy who'd been missing for years. He used to live near the house and had a rocky history with the stranger. Turns out, he was the one who tried to kick the guy out when he was squatting there as a homeless man. That stranger had been using the house as his hideout for years. He had killed, dismembered, and stashed the remains in different corners of the house, his sick way of marking what he thought was his. The police found out he had a long history of severe mental illness, paranoia, violent outbursts, the whole deal. In his twisted mind, this house was the only place that made him feel safe. Losing it had pushed him over the edge. After everything, I couldn't go back to that house. I can't shake the feeling of being led step by step, like a puppet dancing on the strings of a madman. Every time I close my eyes, I hear his voice. I see that arm. In the end, I realized that real danger doesn't just come from the monsters hiding in the dark. It also comes from broken minds. Society left him behind and shoved him to the edges, and in his loneliness, he built a twisted world of his own. I still remember the day Ricky showed up at the dorm. He was tall and skinny, with pale skin like he'd never stepped outside in the sun. His messy black hair hung down over his forehead, almost covering his dark eyes. Ricky didn't smile or give me a friendly hello. He just nodded a little when I introduced myself. He gave me a quick glance and then turned away, dragging his small suitcase into the room. When Ricky talked, which wasn't often, His voice was low and clipped, like a chilly breeze that leaves you feeling cold but nothing else. From the start, there was this uneasy vibe about him, quiet but heavy, like something was off. Our dorm room was tiny and bare, just enough space for 2 beds, a shared desk, and a cramped wardrobe. Ricky didn't bring much, just a plain black backpack and a square cardboard box taped up with dull-colored tape. For some reason, every time I looked at that box, it felt like it weighed a ton. Ricky slid the box under his bed, like it was something sacred that no one could touch. Ever since he showed up, the vibe in the room got heavier by the day. During the day, Ricky was barely around. Where he went, or what he did, I had no idea, and I didn't want to ask. At night, Ricky usually sat at the desk with his back to me. He never turned on the lights, just used the dim glow from his laptop screen. That faint light lit up his face when I snuck a look, casting weird shadows on his hollow cheeks and deep-set eyes. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m., and there he was, still at the desk, typing slowly on his keyboard. The sound was steady, like a faint scratching on wood, echoing in the stiflingly quiet room. This creeping fear started to crawl into my head, but I kept telling myself I was just overthinking it. One evening, I met this girl named Emmy on Snapchat. She popped up out of nowhere, replying to a story I posted about dorm life. Emmy had this cute vibe, blonde hair to her shoulders, and a smile that lit up her whole face, which is what she showed on her avatar. We hit it off right away, and she seemed interested in my life. When I brought up Ricky, though, she got extra curious. I told her about all the weird stuff he did, the sketchy box under his bed, the late nights, and those intense, unsettling stares. She told me to be careful, but joked that maybe I was just overthinking it because I wasn't getting enough sleep. Then one night, things went from weird to straight up bad. I got back to the room later than usual after a study group. When I opened the door, there was Ricky, bent over, digging through my drawers. My heart froze. Ricky didn't even flinch or turn around, like getting caught didn't bother him at all. He just stood up, shut the drawer, and went back to his desk like nothing happened. I tried to play it cool, slowly walked to my bed, and sat down, but inside, I was freaking out. What was Ricky doing going through my stuff? And why didn't he act surprised when I caught him? Those questions kept spinning in my head, and I couldn't sleep at all that night. The suspicion hit a whole new level the next night. Ricky left the room, so I decided to check his stuff. I opened his suitcase and found just a few old clothes, folded way too neatly. I was about to walk away when I noticed the jacket hanging by Ricky's bed. Something in me said to check it out, even though I knew messing with someone else's stuff wasn't cool. As I pulled that old phone out of my pocket, the screen lit up. A Snapchat notification popped up. The account Emmy had just gotten a message. It felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. I opened the app, and everything clicked. Ricky was Emmy. Every conversation we'd had, all the feelings, thoughts, and fears I'd shared about him, he knew it all. A wave of dread washed over me, like I'd been completely exposed under his cold stare. In full-on panic mode, I ran to the closet and started shoving everything into my backpack. I had to get out of there, right then and there. Every second I could hear Ricky's footsteps getting closer. Before I bolted, I glanced at the box under his bed one last time. The lid was slightly open, and inside I saw candid photos of me. There were pictures of me sleeping, sitting in the library, even texting on Snapchat. I took off right in that night. My footsteps echoed through the dark hallway, blending with the sound of my pounding heart. I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to see Ricky or anything else chasing me. It wasn't until the dorm door slammed shut behind me that I finally stopped to catch my breath. But the fear didn't go away. I had no idea what had driven Ricky to do all that, and I didn't want to know. I just wanted to forget everything about that dorm room and never look back. I'm Logan, 36. Moved back to my hometown in Texas after over 10 years of living in other states and trying out all kinds of jobs. Started everything from scratch, but it's all good. I'm fine and feeling optimistic about it all. For the past 3 months, I've been working at a Circle K near my place, doing both gas station attendant and cashier stuff in the store. The job's not hard, but it eats up almost my whole day. Sometimes I make mistakes when I'm working late for long stretches, or when the gas station and store get packed. I told my boss we should hire someone else so we can split shifts. A week after putting up the job ad, the store got a new employee named Benny. He's 7 years younger than me, tall and skinny, with green eyes under a mess of hair. He's really into his old Converse, worn out soles and covered in layers of dust. He always walked heavy, shoulders hunched, looking like a human clothes hanger. He always smelled kind of burnt. Wasn't bad, but it threw people off. Benny was quiet, just a few words to customers like hello and thanks. Even though Benny looked and acted kind of odd, his work attitude was solid, always on time and really detailed. Since Benny showed up, my job's been a little easier. But trouble hit after just 2 weeks. The store started noticing stuff going missing. Not sure when this started, but I only noticed when the stock and sales numbers were way off. So I told the boss. Benny and I are the first ones to take the fall for this. The boss just stayed calm when he heard what I had to say. There are security cameras in the store. Can you check the footage from the last 5 days to see if anything's weird? You're off tonight and I'll pay you full. That's what the boss offered, and I had no reason to say no. Maybe I had been working for a long time, so he decided to trust me. Yep, Benny's weirdness made people around him feel like he was unpredictable. That night I just chilled, did some stuff around the house and ate. Then I crashed on the couch, popped open my laptop, and started checking the footage. 9:30, August 26th. Benny was at the register, messing with some random stuff. A few minutes later, a customer walked in. Anna. I know her. She's a regular. Anna grabbed a bottle of shower gel and a magazine. As soon as she left, another guy walked in. A tall, brown dude. He grabbed something. I zoomed in and saw it was a bottle of engine oil. For the next 20 minutes, no more customers came in, and Benny just stood at the register, not moving. I started yawning, and my eyes were getting super heavy. I left the laptop and pulled out my phone to scroll through a shopping site. It wasn't until I heard a noise that I remembered I was actually getting paid for this, and focused back on it. Benny was arranging stuff in the freezer section. I watched him closely, and he wasn't doing anything weird. The customer bell rang again. Yep, it was Anna. She probably forgot something. Happens all the time. Shower gel in the magazine, I muttered when I saw what Anna was bringing to the counter. I was curious, but then I figured everyone's got their own thing they're into. As soon as Anna left, a tall guy with brown skin walked in. Wait, I yelled, sitting up straight. Earlier, must have just been a coincidence. He probably wanted to buy something else, I mumbled. I was watching every move of that brown-skinned guy, and then, engine oil? I said, reaching out to pause and zoom in to double-check. I got up, walked to the fridge, poured a glass of cold water and drank it all. I was more awake, went back to the couch, put the laptop on my lap, and focused on watching. For the next 20 minutes, Benny was back to cleaning around. While he was by the freezer, the alarm went off again. I widened my eyes to see the customer coming in. Anna? I froze, my heart racing as she walked over to the toiletries counter. A bottle of shower gel and a magazine. That's what she had when she came to the register. I ran my hands through my hair and squeezed. I couldn't say a word, just stayed like that. letting the pain remind me that was real. As soon as Anna left, the brown guy showed up again. My heart was racing. Please, 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 I silently begged him not to grab another bottle of engine oil. But what I wanted and what the guy did were totally different. What the hell is going on? I yelled when I saw what the guy bought for the third time. I looked at the time on the screen. It was still 9:30. I clicked on any part of the recording, and it still showed the same time. I slammed the laptop shut, ran to my room, locked the door, and stared at the clock all night, making sure time was actually moving. As soon as it was daylight, I was both excited and panicked, rushing to the store. Benny didn't show up to work today, and the boss couldn't get a hold of him either. I played the recording for him to see. Once again, the boss and I were stuck in some crazy time loop. The only people we could count on at that point were the police. While we waited for the police to figure things out, the boss and I took turns running the store and the gas station. I was always distracted, just constantly staring at the clock. 2 days after the boss reported it, the police showed up at the store. Based on what you told us, we looked into this young guy named Benny Mason. He's 27. The address he put on his resume is your store. Didn't you catch that? 6 years ago, this place was home to a family of 6. Sadly, the house caught fire and everyone inside died. The oldest son in the house was the only one they couldn't find. When the police checked the tape again, they noticed something weird. With each loop, Benny's shadow on the floor kept getting shorter until it just disappeared. I used to be a criminal detective, familiar with chasing criminals through the dusty streets of New York. But now, I sit in a small room, my ears filled with urgent calls through the 911 dispatch center. This is a punishment, or at least that's what my superiors call it. I made a mistake, a hasty arrest, and acting alone led to a case that wasn't fully solved. They sent me here to learn how to listen. 911, how can I help you? I pick up the phone, my voice monotonous after hours of non-stop calls. On the other end, a woman's voice hesitates. Hello, I just wanted to talk for a moment. Are you okay? I furrowed my brows. This is an emergency line, ma'am. Are you in trouble? No. I just want to know if you're okay, she says, laughing in a way that sounds out of place, as if trapped between a joke and panic. I glance at the clock. Only a few minutes left until my shift ends. I sigh. Ma'am, if this is not an emergency, I'll have to. A man's voice suddenly cuts in, commanding, Get in the car, quickly. I freeze. Are you in danger? Please answer yes or no. She chuckles as if I've said something absurd. Maybe yes. I sensed something was wrong. Tell me your location. Do you see any street signs, shops, or anything? There's a moment of silence, only the sound of wind through the phone. Then, she whispers, barely audible, as though afraid someone might hear. I don't know. If I get in the car, then I will. My heart races. Stay on the line. I signal to my colleague next to me, quickly redirecting the call to the patrol team. The man's voice returns, urgent and commanding. I grip the phone tightly, picturing the woman in my mind. We're sending people. Don't let them suspect. She doesn't answer, but I hear the man shout, followed by the sound of a car door slamming. The call disconnects. Soon after, I receive a message from an anonymous number. Thank you for doing your role well tonight. I freeze, realizing I've been played. They didn't just disrupt the system, they led me into a trap. As I'm processing this, my colleague Jake rushes in, informing me of a kidnapping in the East City Park. A group of criminals took a child, and the patrol team was misdirected due to a fake signal. I dig through the call data and find out the group had hacked into the system, redirecting their calls to my 911 center. Step by step, I realized they had been watching me for a long time, carefully preparing to exploit any weaknesses. Just as my mind swirls with information and emotions, I get a call on my personal cell. Head west to the forest, 10 miles, to the abandoned house. Go alone, remember. It's the woman's voice from before, and the phone disconnects before I can respond. Jake asks if I'm okay, and I tell him to monitor the information. I'll request support if needed. I drive 20 minutes to the location they gave me, my mind on fire. Upon entering the abandoned house, I realize this isn't just a hideout. It's a hub for illegal transactions. Hidden cameras are mounted at corners, the doors are reinforced, and a small control panel with modern electronics sits in the middle of the room. The sound of footsteps from upstairs makes me stop. Instinctively, I move slowly toward the living room. There, a woman sits in a chair with a small gun in hand. She must be the one who called me. A sense of unease starts to creep in. Where are the rest of her gang? I glance at the screen on the control panel. The security camera feed shows clearly. 2 of her associates are upstairs, seemingly busy ransacking the place or preparing to escape. One is standing near a window, holding a phone, likely in contact with someone. My gut tells me there's not much time left. They'll quickly realize I'm here and find a way to stop me, even destroy me. In a sudden move, I throw the flashlight at the woman, distracting her. I rush forward, disarming her before she can open fire. From upstairs, the sound of hurried footsteps comes down. I hear a man's angry voice. What's going on? I drag the woman toward the door, using her as a shield as the 2 other men charge down the stairs. They freeze when they see her subdued. You won't get away, one of them roars, but I hear the sound of police sirens in the distance. They point their guns at me and fire repeatedly, regardless of their own safety. In their frantic, reckless gaze, only selfishness and anger remain. I quickly pull the woman under the table to shield from the gunfire, but I'm too slow. 1 bullet hits her in the stomach, and her painful scream echoes. Immediately after, another bullet pierces my arm, the sharp pain spreading, making my whole arm go numb. The SWAT team rushes in, arresting the entire group. The sound of the child crying fills the air. I freeze, a familiar sensation coursing through me. Vincent! I call out my son's name involuntarily. The child cries while calling for his father, and my heart tightens as the door is broken open, revealing my son tied up in the corner of the room. After the case is concluded, I spend the whole night reviewing what happened. A sense of unease creeps in as I look at the files and equipment retrieved from the abandoned house. Among them is a list of names, addresses, and detailed financial information. Each line of text clearly appears under the desk lamp's light, and one name stands out. The leader of the human trafficking ring I had dismantled 5 years ago. Turning through other documents, I see scrawled notes describing a detailed plan. They had been watching me for a long time, recording my habits, work, and even my family. Red circles on a map of New York City mark areas where they once had operations. At the bottom of the stack, an old, slightly blurred photo shows a dark room with victims bound. I recognize it as the warehouse where they used to hide people before I took down their network all those years ago. When checking the hard drive of the computer, I find short video clips. One of them shows me working at the 911 dispatch center, secretly filmed from a distance. Another video records my family at a park. Details slowly reveal the full picture. They are remnants of the case I once handled. The woman, Marlene, is the mastermind who took over after her late husband's death. He had been taken down by me when the investigation team discovered him. This plan not only aims to continue their illegal activities, but is also a way to get revenge on me. They want me to experience fear and helplessness, just like what they felt when their whole network was destroyed years ago. Even though the case is over, the haunting never lets go. The images in the files, the woman's eyes as she was restrained, and the child's screams still echo in my head every night. I propose the formation of an in-depth investigation team focused on tracking down the remaining members of the organization. Though I know this fight won't be easy, I feel a stronger resolve than ever. I must end this threat once and for all.
I'm William, 54 years old. I used to work as a construction worker, yet recently allowed early retirement due to the tough work conditions and the union requests. I had 2 grown-up children under my belt, my son Jeffrey, 30 years old, and my daughter Aileen, 25 years old. Both of them were single. I raised the 2 of them by myself, and to be honest, I managed to do the best that I could. My wife's Rachel had passed away 20 years ago. It was a day she's working night shift, which I promised to take her back from work. Yet I fell asleep on my night out with coworkers and couldn't make it there. I woke up at 2 a.m. when Jeffrey called me and handed me the telephone with a stranger on the other line. The stranger was a police staff announcing that my wife had passed away in the hospital. I couldn't believe what I just heard. All I could do was to hug my son tightly, who was just 10 years old. My wife was a victim of a robbery gone wrong. She was beaten severely by the very taxi driver taking her home. On the day of her funeral, I was literally a shell of myself, with only the 2 anchors were my children. The pain of losing my wife, leaving my 2 young children to fend for themselves at the very young age, devastated me. I could never forgive myself for leaving my wife alone on that night, fending for herself. All the while, I was drunken, asleep. It's been 20 years already, and not a single day I didn't think of Rachel. I dreamt of her almost every night. So on last Thanksgiving, I decided to take the kids in the woods to commemorate my late wife. She and I had a lot of camping trips in the past, with me being the city boy while she's a naturalist. I and the children arranged everything neatly. It's a cabin in the woods where we will be staying here for a night. After arriving to the campsite, Jeffrey and I did the prep work for the fireplace and food procurement, while Aileen went around taking pictures of the scenery. I wish Rachel was here to see the kids now all grown up. When we were preparing the firewood for the barbecue, I noticed someone silently watching us from afar. It seemed to be a woman, young and slim, from across the tree line. When Aileen called me, it jolted my eyes away for a few seconds, and the woman disappeared when I looked back. Must be another camper or hiker, I thought to myself. After the food was done, we got to the small dining table to eat. The 3 of us all pray for Rachel in heaven to be in peace. Throughout the dinner, I told the kids about Rachel, their mother, about the things we went through, the things that all 4 of us went through, like it had always been. Especially for Aileen, she didn't have much memories about her mom. In the corner of my eyes, I spotted that woman one more time. She's now getting closer, and I could see her clearly. I wasn't sure why, but this woman exuded a very familiar aura around her. Noticing me seeing her, the woman turned away. I stood straight up, feeling an urge to get closer to her. Then, I hit the table and jolted back to reality, much to the surprise of Jeff and Lana. "What's up, Dad?" they asked me. And in that split second, when I looked back, the woman's completely gone. I went back to the table, but couldn't get back to the stories anymore. The night temperature dropped sharply, this deep in the woods, forcing us to stay within the warmth of the cabin's walls, heated up by the flickering firewood. I decided to tell Jeffrey and Aileen about the woman I saw earlier. I think she was in distress, and I would help her if she really needed help. I felt she was very familiar. My 2 children were curious when they heard about that woman. Jeff told me that I should tell him the next time seeing her, while Aileen told me to be careful around strangers. Thanks, kiddo. I'll keep that in mind, I laughed, gently tapped on my daughter's forehead. I stood up to the kitchen to get more water for the kettle. On the way there, I accidentally lifted up the curtains around the dining table. A woman standing there startled me. She was so close that I could clearly see her there in front of me. That was Rachel. No, it was the Rachel, still wearing the same clothes on her last day. I yelled out her name and ran straight to the window, not paying much attention to the still closing wooden frame. Needless to say, the collision knocked me to the floor. The loud commotion jolted my 2 children. They came around worryingly. It's Rachel out there in the woods," I told them, while Jeffrey carefully scanned around the cabin, seeing nothing but eerie woodlands. When I came over, both of them were worrying that I might have something wrong with myself. Especially Aileen. She's worried that I might have Alzheimer's. "Nonsense! I swear it was Rachel. I've seen her with my own eyes." I cried my guts out, sure of what I had just seen. Jeffrey and Aileen decided to end this camping trip earlier and take me home early tomorrow to see the doctor. I reassured the children and returned to my bed. That night, I once again dreamed about Rachel. But it wasn't the nostalgic dreams as usual. This time, it was the dream about her getting beaten badly, suffering all on her own. Rachel cried, asking why I didn't come there as promised. Woken up by the nightmare, I couldn't go back to sleep again. In the morning, I declined my children's offer of taking me home. I had to find Rachel. I needed to talk to her, that I missed her for all those years. I needed her to know that I am truly sorry for what I'd done. Jeffrey and Aileen must return due to their work, so they had to leave me there. But they worryingly told me to keep in touch at all times. Alone in the cabin, I stared at the beautiful Rachel on her wedding day. The old picture I had always kept in my wallet for many years. When I went out to get some fresh air, I saw her once again, in the distance. This time, there wasn't anything that held me back. I immediately chased after her. Despite my consistent yelling for her, she just kept going. I went to a small lake in the woods before lost track of her. Suddenly, it's her voice coming from the middle of the lake. It's she calling me. I was happy, yet sad at the same time. I begged her for forgiveness. Slowly, I drifted myself further and further into the water, until the voice of Jeffrey and Aileen jolted me back from my trances. Rachel had completely disappeared from my sight. It was then that I realized I was halfway into the deep water, my feet and legs completely squeezed shut by the muddy silt. Now, fully awakened, it's time that my survival instinct kicked in. Jeff and Aileen had called off their work for today, feeling worried in their guts. After dragging me ashore, my 2 children cried like the time they were kids. They were so afraid I did something foolish. It was at this moment I realized Rachel wasn't here anymore. She had left 20 years ago now. It's all in my head that I made up to cover for my desires to see her again and to have her forgive me. I almost let myself down in both my sorrow and this cold lake. I had to let the past go. It's all about the present, for Jeffrey and Aileen. I went back home with my children. Right now, I was pretty content with my life. I have joined many senior clubs, making many new friends there. and in the corner of my mind, I believe Rachel had forgiven me long, long ago.
I am Jordan, a tall guy who has lived with a feminine soul since I was 12. Fortunately, my family and loved ones have easily adapted to and accepted this. My best friend Lily is a beautiful girl. I love her brown skin and radiant smile. Lily isn't a celebrity, but she has significant influence on social media. With a steady following, she frequently receives free services. Although Lily's main job is full-time, Instagram is just a hobby for her, a way to enjoy perks from brands. Free cosmetics, beauty services, delicious meals, and fun activities are the benefits she receives from her side work. I feel very lucky to have a friend like Lily, who always shares these wonderful experiences with me. In 2018, during the Memorial Weekend, a small hotel in Miami contacted Lily through Instagram and offered to sponsor a free trip. She would stay at the hotel, take photos, and post a few stories on Instagram to promote it. In the contract they sent to Lily, there was a clause requiring her to pay for the flight ticket up front, and the hotel would reimburse her once she arrived. This time, Lily invited me to join because the contract stated that she could bring a friend along. Lily generously promised that if the hotel didn't pay for my flight, she would do it, so there was no reason for me to refuse. When we arrived in Miami, a man holding a sign with Lily's name and the hotel's logo was waiting at the airport. He led us to a black SUV, and that's when things started to get strange. The driver was a rather intimidating man with a large build, sunglasses, and a heavy voice. As we settled into the car, he suddenly became agitated. He demanded that Lily not bring a boyfriend but go with another girl, stating that it was a condition of the hotel. Both Lily and I were shocked and confused. The man who picked us up at the airport and the driver started arguing in a language we couldn't understand, making everything even more bizarre. Finally, the driver threw our luggage out of the car and sped off. Shocked, Lily immediately sent a message to Melissa, the hotel's PR manager, to tell her what happened. After 20 minutes of waiting in the airport lobby without any response, we decided to take a taxi to the hotel, but when we got there, we were shocked for the second time. The hotel we had planned to stay at had been renamed and was under completely different ownership. The hotel's Instagram account still existed, but when we compared it with the photos and posts on the account, everything seemed outdated. Lily felt deceived and couldn't stop crying from the embarrassment. With no other choice, we called the police. After an investigation, the detective confirmed that the hotel's Instagram account had been hacked and used to scam influencers like Lily. The police couldn't trace who was behind it, as all information regarding the former manager of the account led to dead ends. We were completely confused. Could someone have intentionally planned to lure girls like Lily into a dangerous trap? We decided to book a different hotel and stay in Miami for a few more days. But those thoughts kept haunting both me and Lily, making the trip no longer enjoyable. I became more worried when I thought that if Lily hadn't brought me along, would she have been the next target of the villain? It was terrifying to think that one small mistake could have led to something far worse. The hotel's Instagram account was later deleted, but we never received any information from them. Everything went silent, which made us even more anxious about what might have happened behind our backs. The fear still hasn't let go. Today, looking back at everything, we feel that luck truly smiled upon us.
I am Glenda, 28 years old, a nurse specializing in geriatrics, who has just been transferred to Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. The hospital is implementing a new treatment method for elderly patients called Soothing the Soul, by giving patients teddy bears to keep them company. This therapy method has been somewhat effective, and both the patients and their families have embraced it enthusiastically. Some of the teddy bears are returned to the hospital when patients finish their treatment or pass away, depending on each patient's wishes. Among those teddy bears, I heard stories about Tenderheart Bear, a teddy bear originally meant to carry a positive message of love, kindness, and compassion, had become an object of a curse at the hospital. Tenderheart Bear had been given to several patients before, but they all passed away shortly after receiving the gift. That's what my colleague Heather told me. Not believing in the supernatural story, I placed Tenderheart Bear in my office to observe it further. It was still just a soft teddy bear, with big round eyes and a heart-shaped symbol on its chest, representing love. Something so cute like this, how could it possibly hold a curse? I murmured to myself. But as I looked deeper into Tenderheart's eyes and its smile, I suddenly felt a chill run down my spine. "Glenda!" My colleague's voice startled me, and I jumped up, letting out a loud scream. I couldn't even understand my own emotions at that moment. Shaking it off, I pushed the feeling aside and continued with my work. The next day, when I arrived at the hospital, I was surprised to find that Tenderheart had disappeared. When I asked my colleagues, I learned that another nurse had taken it and given it to a patient. I panicked and ran to that patient's room. She was an elderly woman in her 60s with advanced Alzheimer's, and she was holding the teddy bear very affectionately. I tried every possible way to convince her, but I couldn't get the bear back. The patient clung to it tightly, repeatedly saying that it was a gift from her granddaughter. Feeling helpless, I eventually gave up and allowed her to keep the teddy bear. The very next day, the patient's health took a sudden turn for the worse. She refused to eat and fell into an unconscious state. By the evening of the same day, she passed away. I still didn't believe in the curse of Tenderheart until a week later, when another patient passed away just 2 days after receiving the bear. Holding Tenderheart in my hands, I looked at its cute face, but all I felt was fear and anxiety. I took the bear and hid it deep in a corner of the hospital storage room, and everything went back to normal. About 2 weeks later, the hospital admitted a new patient, and I was the one assigned to take care of her. Her name was Elise, 70 years old, and she was undergoing treatment for both psychological and cardiovascular conditions. Elise's husband had passed away recently from a stroke, and her children and grandchildren also died a week later in a car accident. The woman always wore a smile, but deep in her eyes was a sorrowful longing and grief. After nearly a month of treatment at the hospital, Elise's health showed no signs of improvement. Other patients often complained about her crying and walking the hallways at night, constantly calling out the names of her deceased loved ones. It was her psychological condition and heart disease that were both worsening. The hospital made every effort to contact Elise's last remaining relative, her cousin. But when the cousin saw Elise's condition, he showed indifference. "What can I do here? Call me when she's no longer breathing." From that moment on, I decided to keep a closer watch on Elise. I began to treat her like my own mother. She was tormented by chest pains, which became more frequent and lasted longer each day. A miracle happened when she survived 2 critical moments, but after each incident, Elise lost a physiological function. Now, she is unable to walk and cannot speak. Elise's body was covered in IV tubes, and an oxygen mask was strapped to her face. Her eyes reflected pain, helplessness, loneliness, and despair. After many days of inner struggle, I found myself in the storage room, determined to retrieve the teddy bear, Tenderheart. I placed it next to Elise's bed and burst into tears. The next morning, when I came for my usual checkup, Elise had passed away. Perhaps this was what would make her happy, reuniting with the people she loved and no longer having to endure the physical pain that tormented her.